Hi, I'm Katie Kempner, and right now I am very privileged to end today's Perspectives programming with the CEO of Ogilvy & Mather, Cheryl Giovannoni. So could you just talk a teeny bit about your career and how you got to where you are now?
I started my career at Ogilvy & Mather in South Africa, funnily enough, as a PA.
Really?
I did, in the Research and Strategic Planning Department, and I was doing a degree part-time. I had finished school and I came from a very traditional family, and my mother felt that the most important thing for one of 4 daughters to do was to go to finishing school for a year and then find a nice rich husband to marry. Which I didn't do, contrary to her beliefs that that was what I needed to do. I started a degree part-time and I got a job as a PA to pay for my studies. And I worked for a fantastic woman called Denise Giovannoni, no relation, bizarrely. And she really saw potential in me, and she gave me lots of extra work to do. She really helped me realize my potential and grow and develop in the role, and she promoted me, and I moved up in the organization. I started working in research, and then I moved into account management as an account director and started working on Unilever business. And I then transferred to London with Ogilvy to work on some Unilever business here, and worked in advertising in London, first at Ogilvy, and then I went to another network within the Interpublic group called Low Howard Spink at the time. Did that for 3 years, and after my second child I came back to the agency, and I was very keen at that point to try and progress into a management role. I thought it probably would be the point at which I needed to make that transition, and I was hoping that that would help me balance my home and work life better if I was in a more senior position and I had a little bit more control over my time. And about 4 months after that, I got a call from WPP, and I moved back into the WPP group to run one of the design businesses in the UK called Coady Portobello. So I joined there as CEO, and I at that point knew nothing about design. But I thought if I could run a business of 40 people and actually prove I could do that, I felt that was a good way for me to work out whether I could actually manage and lead. And I did that for 4 years, which I absolutely loved, and then moved from Coady Portobello into a much more corporate branding company within WPP called Landor Associates. And I ran the London office of Landor, got promoted to European president, and ended up being the global business partner for the P&G business at Landor. And by pure coincidence, I got a call from Ogilvy, having been away from the company for 20 years, to come and talk to them about coming back as CEO.
That's fantastic. That must have felt so validating.
It absolutely was, and I was enormously flattered that a company that I'd grown up with felt that, you know, I was the kind of leader that they wanted to come back and actually take on such an important job.
So you said kind of the magic words for me when you were going through your career, which is that you originally were thinking you wanted to get into a management role because you wanted to find a little more balance. And as you know, that's really, as we were discussing, what I'm particularly interested in is how women who are extremely successful like you are able to find balance. Do you think that now being in such a senior management role, you have been able to balance your life a little bit better?
If you can stick it out through the years where you are growing and developing in your career, and stay committed and dedicated when actually your time is very much dictated by your job, I think the more senior you become, the more you can actually make choices, and the more you can use the great network of people you have around you to help you get that balance. And I never claim to be Superwoman. I don't ever believe that I can do everything. I'm not the perfect mother. I have an absolutely brilliant husband who does his fair share. I have very grown-up children who are very independent and who do their bit, and I expect quite a lot of them as a working mother. And I try and live in the moment. If I'm at work, I'm at work. I don't like to mix my home life and my work life very much. But when I'm at home, I very much like to think that I am in the moment of home. And there isn't a lot of transfer between the two roles. I don't take my children to work very much. I try not to take work home by the same measure. Of course, I do some of the time. But I try my very best. It doesn't always work, and there is obviously a lot of times that I've missed being where I wanted to be, but actually sometimes you have to be where you need to be as opposed to where you want to be, and maybe that's with your children at their ballet exam, or at a special event with your family, and sometimes work has to come first.
You run a large company and there's a lot of women that work for you, and I think it's great that you're able to set boundaries about not bringing your work home, and I'm curious if that's how you would advise younger women who may not be able to do that as much, or feel that they can't be able to do that as much.
I think it's quite tricky. It's not easy, and I don't get it right all of the time, but I do believe that you don't have to. There is this real disease called presentism, where people think they have to be at their desks very long hours to prove that they are actually doing an effective job. And I think sometimes actually doing your job in a very tight, productive way is more valuable than thinking, oh, well, I'll take a whole pile of it home with me tonight. If you really focus on getting it done during your working day, there's less need for you to fill the rest of your day with work because you actually haven't got to it during the day. The thing that I'm not very good at is I always make time to talk to people. If they need to talk to me, regardless of how much work I've got, I like to have an open door. I like people to feel they can come to me for advice, to work through some of their issues, to deal with some of their challenges. And if I do have to take work home, it is often after I've closed down whatever I've had to do at home, and then I would go back to it. I don't try and do two things at the same time.
I think that's one of the things that females really bring to the table, wanting to really talk to people. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is just, through your career, we had spoken about this a little bit, you didn't take time off once you have children. What sort of advice do you have for women about that period of time when they're having children and whether they're able to take time off or not?
I think my advice would be you have to do what feels right for you at the time, and sometimes circumstances dictate what you need to do. But whatever decision you make, you should be comfortable with it and live with it. The only thing I would say though is if you do decide to take time off, there are sometimes sacrifices that need to be made depending on how long you take. If you take a year out, I think you have to be realistic about what you can come back to and how you will have to reestablish yourself, as opposed to the working place will have waited for you. You have to be flexible, you've got to adjust. You may take a role that might not have been the role you left behind, but actually getting back and being open enough to the opportunities that present themselves and really just relishing those and making the most of whatever gets put on your plate and not saying no to opportunities. I think sometimes what women do is they're frightened to take on new responsibilities because they don't know the impact it's going to have. I think the important thing is you should take them and see how you make it work, and you'll often surprise yourself at just how flexible and adaptable and how well you can manage if you set your mind to it.
That's great advice. And I like to end all my interviews and just ask if there's one piece of advice that you could give to your daughters or to young women walking around here at Advertising Week that's helped you in your career, what would it be?
My advice would be live in the moment, enjoy the job you have, absolutely give it your very best, do everything you can to be the very best you can be in that role. Don't always be thinking about what the next role is and what promotion you'd like next and what else there is available to you. Just do the very best job you can, make yourself indispensable, and always bring a little bit extra that people haven't asked for, because that's the way you'll get the next promotion. Instead of always looking for it, actually doing things in your current job that make you stand out and shine, you'll get noticed, and that's the way you'll progress in the organization.
Thank you. It was great talking with you.
Great to talk to you. Thank you.